Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we read letters from the voyages of St. Frances Cabrini as she traveled around the Western Hemisphere sharing the good news of Christ. Welcome, Catholic pilgrims, to the end of another voyage. Though it is the end of the voyage, you will find that the letter is incomplete. We get no sign-off, as is typical with the other letters. Who can say why? Maybe the letter was destroyed or lost over time. Anyway, it will end a bit abruptly. Obviously, Mother will have made it to New York, but we won't hear about that. Since it is the end of a voyage, I will be giving my reflection at the end. Let's open to page 231. November 10th. The weather has been beautiful and the days most gorgeous as we have proceeded, but today it is so cold that we cannot stay on deck. Fortunately, we are able to stay in our cabins, and very comfortably also, as we are not troubled with the smell of pitch, which is so disagreeable. We need not go to the common room. We spend a happy time praying, reading, and practicing languages. Sister Frances, who thinks she is already very clever at Italian, teaches it to others and amuses us with her mistakes, which she makes with so much grace and personal enjoyment. The other day they asked her nationality, and she said she was Italian because she belonged to an Italian institute. One of the officers, sorry at seeing us always shut up, would come or send for us whenever there was anything new to see, especially when a steamer was in sight. This he did to mitigate the monotony, which he thought must be trying for us. But we were not in the least inconvenienced, because we were united with our Jesus and doing his holy will. We had heaven in our hearts. The immensity of the ocean, with its most clear and vast horizon, raises our minds to heaven. It seems as if the sky, with its clouds of singular beauty, touches the waters of the ocean. All this helps to raise one's mind to the most beautiful contemplation, and seems to bring us to the door of heaven, and to enable us to hear the echoes of those holy and sweet words, which the Church repeats with great jubilee. Alleluia, Alleluia. Holy Mother Church never tires of repeating these words, as though to give us here below a foretaste of the harmonies of heaven. Let us return to London again, where courtesy and politeness reign supreme. It was midday, and as my companion was hungry, I looked around to see if I could find a hotel, when I discovered one with an Italian name. We went in and asked for something to eat, and were received with great cordiality. They made such a fuss that one would have thought we were relations. They put us at a nice little table all by ourselves and served us a la Milanese. It was a great pleasure to meet these Italians, who are a credit to their nationality, for they are good Catholics, loving their religion and practicing it. It happened to be a day of abstinence, and they offered us whatever we could eat in the circumstances. The day flew by very quickly, and seeing that it was near sunset, we went to the station from which we started in the morning. This was easily reached, as the underground runs throughout the city like a labyrinth. We took our tickets, as in the morning, descended by the lift, and were in the train in no time. Having passed 2 or 3 stations, I remarked to my companion that I thought we had made a mistake, as our station did not seem to come round, and it was difficult to find one's bearings in the underground. Sister Frances encouraged me by saying that, having been all around the city, the journey seemed longer, and that we should arrive at the correct point. I remained quiet for another few minutes and said another decade of my rosary, but not feeling convinced after having passed 2 other stations, I asked the conductor where we were. Our surprise was great when he saw our tickets and told us we were very far from our destination. We had to leave the train, and after descending, crossed a bridge to take a train going in the opposite direction. We then stopped, after some time, at a station which we were told was quite near the convent at which we were staying. We inquired where the convent was, but nobody seemed able to tell us. Night was coming on, and the darkness was great, as the moon, surrounded by clouds, looked more like a lamp going out, while its light rather bewildered us than showed us the way. In the end, I was obliged to take a cab, but even the cabman had to ask continually where the convent was situated. On August 2nd, we left London to go to Manchester, where some friends awaited us and where Sister Frances was able to see her relatives before leaving for the missions. Before leaving London, we saw Monsignor Bourne, Bishop of Southwark, and bade farewell to the dear sisters of the retreat, who had become very attached to us and wanted us to stay on longer. At 9 a.m., we were at Victoria, where we gave orders with regard to our luggage. The porters were going to weigh it to ascertain the cost of transport when the clerk gave them orders to take it as it was to the train. The sisters, he said, can go as they are. And he gave me a ticket to reclaim the luggage at the end of the journey. I was astonished at the courtesy shown me, and entirely implored blessings on this country of England, which I soon should love to call, if possible, the land of angels. You all have heard me talk about our time in Turkey numerous times. In case you missed it, my husband was the squadron commander for the 425th in Izmir, Turkey. There is no base in Izmir, just a squadron located on the 5th and 6th floors of an old Hilton. Yes, you heard that right. Those 2 floors were Little America. We had a commissary, which is a grocery store, a BX, a barbershop, a restaurant, post office, offices, of course, a library, and other things. My husband's squadron supported the NATO base there in Izmir and also offered support to Chile Air Base. That's a Turkish air base that we help maintain. It's quite an interesting setup. It's a 1-year assignment, and when my husband got there, he hit the ground running. When we were there, it was at the height of the pandemic, and Turkey was brutally harsh with its rules. Many weekends, we were in lockdown, meaning nobody was allowed outside unless you were walking a dog or going to the grocery store. So as you can imagine, there were lots of people walking dogs and needing to get food. The NATO commander there was a 3-star army general, and he had a dog named Guapo. And we borrowed Guapo so that we could go outside and walk the dog as a family. Because when you have a 7-year-old son cooped up all weekend, you need to find a way to get out. And Izmir is a huge city, and everyone lives in apartments with no yards to be found. Many of the Turkish people would go to their beach homes so that they could be out in their yards. However, for the American military, this was not the case. Since American military families were not sponsored by the military to go over to Turkey, every American military service member was without a family, except my husband, and that was only because I decided to go to Turkey and become a Turkish resident for 1 year. So you had all these young single airmen cooped up in apartments for the weekend and sometimes for weeks, and it was very demoralizing. My husband not only had to work with NATO and all the foreign countries there and with the Turkish Air Force, but he also worked to have a good relationship with the local Turkish government. My husband went and met with the mayor of Izmir and the governor of the province that we lived in. And because of my husband's hard work, he and the mayor worked out an agreement that American military could hang out at the squadron together on lockdown weekends so that no one had to be alone. They actually were given letters to carry with them as they went from their apartment to the squadron so that if they got stopped by the police, they could show them the letter signed by the mayor that said they could be out going to the Hilton Hotel. So as you can imagine, this was a huge morale boost and one that really brought us together as a military family. We all spent a lot of time in the club, which when I say club, it was like a restaurant. We all spent a lot of time there just hanging out together. Some guys were playing poker, some were playing pool. We ended up getting a shuffleboard. We just spent a lot of time together so that nobody had to be alone. Not only this, but my husband had to deal with the 7.0 earthquake that you probably all heard me talk about and the damage that did to some of the apartments of his troops. My husband ended up bringing in American engineers to check if the apartments were safe for the American troops to be living in. And some of them were not. And so then my husband's squadron had to help find them new places to live and deal with emotions. There was lots of emotions. A lot of people were suffering from, just being scared, going back into their apartments, scared that it was going to happen again. A lot of those things, which I can totally understand. I was a little nervous about going back into our apartment. So he just had so much to deal with. And most days he went in at 5 a.m. and didn't get home until late in the evening. On weekends, when we could be free, we traveled like crazy because we only had 1 year to see a lot of things. So at the end of our time there, my husband was utterly exhausted and he needed rest badly. When we got back to the States, he didn't get much of a rest before starting his next job, and he talks about how disoriented and sluggish he felt initially coming back to the States. He talks about how he just really needed to rest his body and his mind. Throughout this voyage, we've heard about Mother's time in Europe before this certain voyage that we've just finished. As I said in another episode, she's been going strong for a decade, traveling all over. And we hear how she does finally take some time for a retreat, which she admits was much needed. We also hear her talk about her exhaustion after spending 15 days in Paris setting up a convent. After that, her body is so tired, she can barely walk. Thankfully, she stays in bed a few days and recovers. This is something that is important to remember for all of us. We need to rest. We need time to recoup and refresh. Yes, sometimes duty calls and you have to keep moving forward, but when you can, take time to rest, especially on Sundays. Even saints have to rest. Jesus needed to rest, so it is okay to rest. That is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I'll see you back here soon for the start of another voyage. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.